Sebastian here, curator of the Sonic Symphonic podcast and composer of the Kalasin series of albums and the soon-to-be finished, soon-to-be-released Spitting Out Flies. That's that chap up there. Borderline personality disorder Opus 1 coming next year. But today, this is such a cool story. This is going to be such a cool video. I'm really happy to have received this submission, and I talk about the rather ubiquitously named Bloody Stool. I mean, there's probably a story behind that name. I don't know it, but Bloody Stool's origins are, can we say, somewhat different. They started without any musical instruments, the songs, no record executives, nothing that is indicative of the typical path that most bands take when they form, because Bloody Stool was started in prison. And it's called the Starke prison. It's Florida State Prison. They were all prisoners in their own right. And they say they've all done hard time. All 6 current members did hard time in Starke. They say it's a complete shithole of its own death chamber. I mean, I've been in a prison here in the UK. You know, we don't have that. You know, the thought of being on a wing. You know, you could be talking to someone, you know, 1 month, and then the next month, you know, it's like, hey, I've got a week to go until I get my lethal injection. I mean, that throws some moral dilemmas up in any setting, in any way, shape, or form. It's they say that you know, that lethal injections were just business at Starke. They also say you have a lot of time in prison, downtime, depressing time, suicidal thought time. They say prison sucks more than you can imagine. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. You know, I was fortunate enough to eventually come out of what were called closed conditions and go to an open prison, which was more like living on a university campus with like shared halls, you know. So that part of the sentence wasn't bad, but I remember when I was conveyed to my first prison of the series that I would progress through during my sentence. And it was an old Victorian era prison, you know. The windows, there wasn't such thing as windows. It was just cold, you know. But it was bars on the windows, really, really high. Stuck in this really sort of damp, you know, tiny cell. And you know, these tiny little yards, and just all the noise, all the bleakness. We had COVID-19 at the time, you know, so people weren't coming out. The staff didn't really know how to handle COVID because it was a new thing. So it was easiest just to keep us locked in our boxes. You know, I was with an absolutely psychopathic cellmate who would trash the cell. It was dark. It was twisted. A gentleman I would speak to on the yard and sort of create a bond with. He ended up hanging himself. So yeah, I mean, prison sucks. And music can help you escape it. Now, during my course through my journey through the prison system, you know, there was never much opportunity to get involved in anything musically. You know, equipment is lacking. But you know, just something familiar on the radio, or the sparse CDs that you could get. You know, they made a world of difference. And I wrote some music, you know, on paper, lyrics, formulated some ideas for future projects, and yeah, it saves you and it motivates you. You know, I suppose without that, yeah, I could have certainly been a lot worse off mentally. Anyway, so yes, so they've all been prisoners. Now, I've got to go through each band member's individual story. I'm going to post links below. They've all got their own sort of individual sort of like, you know, sort of TikToks and social media presents where they go through their story, but this is just so interesting. So we've got Bucky on lead vocals, and he has an unusual vocal sound as a result of a fight in his first month in prison, where his voice box was crushed and his vocal cords were permanently damaged. But regardless, he's still, the baddest motherfucker on the planet. This is what they say on their website. You've got Trim on guitars, aka The Truth. And this guy has been playing guitar since he was 6, self-taught. He spent some time in metal bands, but lost interest and instead found a passion in chasing girls, and working on cars, stealing high-level Mercedes, Porsches, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Bentleys, and until eventually he ended up in prison. And now he's totally focused on his guitar work. Who else we got? We've got Rip, also on guitars. He earned his nickname because he loved to print off $100 bills and pass them through the system. He says some people call it forgery, or we're calling it ripping off the corrupt government system, hence the nickname. Eventually his money game ended, and he ended up, in Starke and with the band. So we've got Gator. I love these nicknames, man. He came to the US from Cuba on a leaky boat with 23 of his closest friends, and he discovered cocaine on day 2 in Miami. Yeah. The discovery of something like cocaine usually leads to disaster. So, he rose quickly in the sort of distribution network in his area, and a sting operation got him, and he landed him in Starke. So yeah, okay. What else do we have? We have Dick. Dick Hickory, the name says it all. Could be the best drummer name ever. His ticket to Starke was armed robbery. He was driving the getaway car. He takes his overly aggressive sort of nature out on the drums these days, and playing life and the drums loud and hard. It's an understatement. Okay, yep. And then finally, I love this. I love how honest these guys are. That's so good. And I'll come on to that a little bit more. Right, so Chunk, keyboards, harmonica, low-end foundations. After getting out of hospital, he was Bucky's next and final cellmate in Starke. He grew up in one of the toughest areas. Piano came naturally after stealing his first digital keyboard from the local youth centre. Self-taught and then classically trained via a scholarship. He had a bright musical future. He politely objected to being harassed by a police officer while walking to a piano lesson. After a brief struggle, Chunk ended up with the Billy Club and definitely left his mark, literally and figuratively, on a racist copper. So that's how he ended in there, and says it was worth every funking second. Now, they released an album, and I've got another one on their way, but let's get on to that. So the theory of Volume 1, brackets heavy funkin metal. So, I haven't given this any preview whatsoever. So let's just get straight into it. I'm assuming some funk. With a name like Bloody Stool, I was initially expecting maybe something, proper sort of death, metal. But maybe it's a blend of that with funk. Or maybe it's something completely different. So let's go with I Hate You, and let's see where we're at.
Turn it up. One thing I know is true.
Okay, so that was a bit different. So this is like it's a bit sort of like funky in the way that Rage Against the Machine were. Wow. And yeah, definitely a unique vocal. Um, and like it's like a bit of sort of like Rammstein toned down, but goes funky. You know, big solid grooves. I can imagine this band actually doing really well live. You know, there's you know, this is not the usual type of sort of metal that I listen to. But like yeah, it's catchy. The funk is on point. Heavy funk in metal. Maybe that's a whole like new genre that they're well, not can't be new because I just referenced Rage Against the Machine. But you know, but yeah, it's a nice standpoint, and you know, it's interesting. Okay, so right, I'm just gonna like bounce into the next one, but maybe talk a little bit more. So what should we go with? So this title seems to want to capture my attention because it's called Piss Not, all in one word. And well, okay, what's that about? Okay, let's just go with it.
Hey, can I get a little Shakespeare? I'm getting ready to get medieval on your ass. Piss not me off.
Oh, that's good.
Me
Big. Oh, nah.
off this. Not me. Shakespeare, please. Off. Hey punk, your game is over, and your time has run out. Let me repeat it again. Your game is over. It's done. Hey freak, your game is over. Your time has run out. Your game is over. It's done. Can I get a little Shakespeare, please? Piss not me off. 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 Piss not me off.
Oh man, I love that one. I love that one more than the first. That's so cool. Again, this is such a fun band. Ah man. I just love the like the timing. I love the funk. It's just so it's just it's so refreshing, you know. And you know the fact that you know these gentlemen they've paid the time, which was the consequences of you know their disordered actions. But you know that, and I kind of speak from my own paths and experiences as well a little bit. But you know the burden that can remain with that is quite can be quite something. It can be quite heavy. It can be quite substantial. Um, but And I think the only way you can get around that is by invest your kind of talents and energies into something that is for meaning, has some meaning and is meaningful. And it's kind of what I'm doing with the work that I do and the podcast and, investing in my music. But to create something so fun and light-hearted, and to still I've no idea about their release dates, but let's look at it. Let's look at it this way. The odds of a bunch of guys collectively coming out of prison at different times, having had disordered structure to their life, and the risk of recidivism or sort of going back, because it's quite a struggle to set your life up again post custody. But to not only have they done that as individuals, they've collectively managed to remain in contact and create a band, sustain the band, do all of the the music, the composition, the the things like the website and the marketing, and to keep themselves maintained on this trajectory. Well, that's quite something. And to make it sound fun as well. It's really commendable. It's really commendable, and I think I'd like to see more. This is probably an example that is just such a rarity, but I'd like to see more of this. In communities across the world. Wow. So. Okay, we're going to select a third track. So we might just do one at random, maybe. Let's go with Use Me. Use Me. say. Oh, not done there yet. Now we're done. Ah, man. Ha. That was my favourite of the lot. I love how catchy these guys are. It is definitely heavy funkin' metal, and I'm a convert. I'm an absolute convert. This is just so much. There's so much greatness behind this. It's uncomplicated, groovy, fun, and it's inspirational. It's inspirational. What these guys have, gone through, made out of it, and are perpetuating. What a story! What a band! What an album! Can't wait for the next. And I've been quite fortunate this week because I just did one called for one of these for a group called Soldiers of Forgiveness, and their story is, they invest all of their money that they receive into worthwhile world causes, anti-racism, charitable stuff, and the support for the people in Ukraine, and all this kind of stuff. And I offered them an interview to kind of speak more about that. And I would like to do an episode of my podcast on this band and their stories and everything combined. So I'm going to put all the links and stuff below. Give them a follow, and Bucky and crew, get in touch. It's really interesting backstory. Really love your credible honesty, and the powerful fun music, and it's been a good day today. I've enjoyed this. This is going. I'm going to listen to the full album on my way to work later, and it's going to lift. It's an album that lifts your spirits. Wow, there you go. Bloody Stool, everyone.